So rather than actually talking about my business like we've heard from Sarah and Jason, I actually want to talk to you about your businesses and give you some practical tips that you can use to really drive innovation back in the places that you work. But unfortunately, I help companies, spend my life helping companies with innovation, but unfortunately I come across a lot of really bad innovations, ideas that should never have seen the light of day. Ideas such as this, for example, the butter stick. Don't want one of them in my fridge. Or this, the boyfriend arm pillow. Yeah, don't fancy waking up next to that. Or this, the baby mop. Although there are probably some mums in the room going, it's not a bad use for my baby. But whatever the case, these are ideas that should never have seen the light of day. And I want to talk to you about how you can avoid making sure that you never bring one of these ideas to life. So why should you innovate? And Alistair talked about some great statistics about why innovation is so important. For me, though, it comes down to three key reasons why you would want to care about innovation in your business. Firstly, to not die. Right? Not that inspiring, but very, very relevant, because if you look around the world is rife with examples of companies that have failed to innovate and are now either dead or on serious life support. And at the end of the day, if you're failing to differentiate yourself and your business, then, you can kiss goodbye success. Secondly, to grow. Now, can I ask who's aspiring to grow their business in the next 3 years? Anyone? Fantastic. Is anyone aspiring to decline? Awesome. So innovation is probably relevant for you for that reason. And thirdly, and I think most underratedly, is to be involved in awesomeness. Because every awesome thing in this world is the result of someone having had a great idea and having the guts to do something about it. So 3 reasons why you should care about innovation. But then that begs the question, how do you get better at it? And every man and his dog has an opinion on innovation and how to do it better. But unfortunately, most opinions are just fluff. They're not really based on any evidence that, what this person's recommending will actually work. So what you want to do, if you want to really decrease failure rates and increase profitability, is you want to innovate scientifically, using methods that have been scientifically proven to work. Which is what I'm about. I'm a massive science geek, which I know, shock horror, you were thinking, oh, but she looked so cool and hip. No. I've got my little red connies on, for those in the back that can't see. So I'm a massive science geek. My obsession with science and numbers and data started from quite a young age, where when I was about 3 or 4 years old, my absolute hero in the world was the Count from Sesame Street. Do you remember the Count? I loved the Count. And I loved the Count so much so that I made my mum buy me a cloak and I would get around town dressed as the Count. Yeah. As I moved through school, one of my favourite things to do was to experiment on the family dog Tabby. So this is a picture of Tabby. She was a black standard poodle, and this particular night I'd set up an experiment to see what coloured sheet of paper Tabby prefers to eat her dinner off. And this night it was blue, as you can see there, and then someone told me that dogs were colourblind. So out went that experiment. I then continued through to university, did a bit of a life sentence in organisational psychology, studied it for 7 years in the end and did my PhD in the subject. And can I ask, have we got anyone that studied psychology in the room? I often find that there are a few. Yeah, cool, fantastic. And you guys might recognise this as the shorthand symbol for psychology. Or asleep during that lecture, I don't know. Anyway, I look at this now and I think, God, that looks like the devil's pitchfork, doesn't it? But try not to use my knowledge for evil, although having said that, I did work in advertising for a few years, helping people buy more stuff that they didn't necessarily need. But then 6 years ago, I had the desire to do something more meaningful with my life, and I started this company called Inventium. And Inventium is an innovation consultancy that exists to help companies take a scientifically proven approach to driving innovation. So we work all over the world with companies such as these ones, helping them bring better innovations to market. So what I want to talk to you now about are 3 different practical ways that you can just take back to your business and start using immediately to drive innovation. So firstly, assumptions. Assumptions have got to be one of the biggest innovation killers out there. And if you think about any kind of a challenge that your business is facing, problem that you're trying to solve, chances are what will be sitting in the back of your head are a bunch of assumptions. Things that you assume to be true. Like, for example, my budget to solve this problem is X number of dollars. An assumption that basically fences in our thinking. Because what happens, whenever we have an assumption about a problem that we're trying to solve, it's like this fence goes up in our brain and says to our brain, your thinking cannot venture beyond this area, right? So what we want to do is we want to identify those assumptions, those kind of rules and things that we operate by that are really fencing in our thinking. And we want to crush those assumptions by asking, what if the opposite was true? And by crushing those assumptions, it's like knocking down that fence in your brain to give permission for all these, your thoughts to wander in all these other areas. And I'll take you through a couple of examples of what I mean by crushing assumptions, and then some tips on how to do it back in your business. So a classic example of crushing assumptions is the iPhone. And who's got an iPhone in the room? Just out of interest? Yeah, that's quite a bit of market share. So I don't know if you remember back to the days where Nokia was relevant. But if you were a mobile phone manufacturer working about 10 years ago, and you're thinking, you're briefed with coming up with the next big thing in mobile phones, one of the assumptions that would probably be governing your thinking is that a mobile phone must have 12 buttons on it, right? Because how else would you make a call? Apple said, well, what if a mobile phone only had one button on it? What could that look like? And then the interface of mobile phones was changed as we know it. Another local example, a Melbourne-based business called Repless. They crushed a very fundamental assumption. I've been doing this roadshow as part of a Commonwealth Bank forum for small businesses, and one of the most common questions that I'm getting asked on that roadshow is, what can we do to promote and market our business that isn't that expensive? Because I think one of the assumptions that we have is that advertising and marketing is really expensive. So this company called Repless.com, they crushed this assumption for businesses, small and large. And what they do is they said, well, what if advertising could be inexpensive? What if it could actually be free? So here's what they do. They had this idea of linking up businesses and, from small to big brands such as Warner's Music with what they call social media influencers. So people that are really big on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, that have thousands, if not millions of followers. And they connect up these businesses with these social media influencers for product integration opportunities. It's kind of like these social media influencers are like the new celebrity, if you like, the new celebrity endorsement. And all for the cost of just giving away some free product or services. So an incredibly affordable business model for or businesses that are wanting to promote their business. So back in your organisation, crushing assumptions, two things to remember. Firstly, what you want to do is identify that challenge that you're trying to solve, and then think about what are some negative or neutral assumptions. Like a neutral assumption is just describing things how they are, like a mobile phone has 12 buttons. Or a negative assumption might be, our customer experience is a little bit ordinary or a bit the same as all our competitors. Once you've identified those assumptions, and with any given challenge, there might be 5 assumptions, there might be 50 assumptions. There's no right or wrong way. But then what you want to do is you want to ask yourself, what if the opposite was true? What if the opposite was true? If your budget's $10,000 to solve a problem, what if it was $1? Or what if it was $1 billion? And use that as a springboard for developing new ideas. So I want us to lock this down in memory because it's early. Like, who's a morning person here, just out of interest? Great, 15 of us. Cool. So I want to make sure that that our time together is not wasted and that you don't just kind of listen and then forget everything. So we're going to do something that's going to seem a little bit weird, but trust me, I'm a psychologist. So what I want you to do is, and I'll explain why we're doing this in a moment, but I want you to just go like that, like you're crushing something, okay? So all of you, yep, excellent. No one's above this. Louise, are you crushing? Thank you, fantastic. And at the count of 3, I want you to just say what's written up on the slide with me, okay? So keep crushing in your hands, and on the count of 3, saying what's written up there. 1, 2, 3, crush assumptions. Awesome, fantastic, great, you can stop doing that. So the reason why we're doing that, just really quickly, we're going to do that a couple more times this morning, is it's tripling your chance of remembering this stuff, all right? So by looking at it up on the screens, it's going into a visual memory system. By saying it out loud and hearing other people say it out loud, it's going into an auditory memory system. And by doing something physical, it's going into a kinesthetic or muscle memory system. So 3 times the chance of remembering this stuff. And trust me, I'll get people that have heard me speak years ago, and they'll see me at something and they'll go, hey, I'm still doing that. And then I think that's really cool. Okay, so next thing. All right, so this is going to sound really, really obvious, but whenever you've got a problem to solve that, could do with some creative thinking, what will happen is that you will solve that problem from your own point of view. which sounds incredibly like an obvious thing to say, but we've all, had our own experiences and exposed ourselves to various bits of knowledge in this world, which means that whenever we're setting out to solve a problem, we kind of attack it from our own point of view. But if we're always solving problems from the same point of view, then chances are we're going to come up with similar kinds of solutions to the problems that we're trying to solve. So another way to really instantly boost your ability to drive innovation more effectively in your business is to ask yourself, how would someone really, really different from me solve this problem? What would they do? Like if Richard Branson was taking over my business today, how would he solve this problem? Or what would Google do? Or what would Oprah do? An example from CommBank, who I mentioned earlier, if you just ignored that yellow and black logo on this device, just call out what company you think would have brought this product to market. Apple, yeah. I never get another answer. Everyone always says Apple. And it looks like something Apple would do. But how CommBank, came up with this, which is basically a new mobile payment terminal, is asking themselves, well, how would someone really different from us that, values and prioritises very different things than we do as a bank, what would they do if they were designing the next FPOS terminal, if you like, and thus came up with a very differentiating solution. So putting yourself in someone else's shoes, the next time you're really stuck on some kind of a challenge in your business and asking yourself, how would someone really, really different from me solve this problem, is a guaranteed way to drive innovation. So we'll lock this one down in memory as well, okay? So I'll get you grabbing onto one of your shoes, which is easy for you guys because you're all sitting down and I'm not. And on the count of three, saying what's written up there, holding onto your shoe. Yep, great. 1, 2, 3. Put yourself in someone else's shoes. Wonderful, wonderful, fantastic. I want to talk about one more thing. So it's all well and good to have lots of brilliant creative ideas in your business, but unless you're making good decisions about which ideas to progress and which to leave behind, creativity and ideas are kind of useless. Okay, so I want to leave you with one final thing that will really help just improve the quality of decision making in your business, whether that be decision making that's related to ideas and innovation or decision making related to other stuff. So I want you to ask yourself the question, when do you make most of the important decisions in your business, okay? So are you someone, for example, that gets into the office bright and early and makes the most important decisions first thing in the morning? Or are you perhaps someone that works throughout the day and gets all that stuff done, and then finally when you've got some space to breathe in the afternoon or in the evening, that's when you make your decisions? Or is it just completely random? Does it just depend on when you can get the right group of people in the room together to make that decision, or when you find a spare gap in your day? So reflect on which one of those groups that you fall into, and we'll do a quick survey to see where we all fall. Okay, so put your hand up if you're one of those early morning decision maker types that I talked about initially. Okay, fantastic, great. So that's maybe about sort of 10-15% of the room. Hands up if you're sort of more towards the afternoon, end of the day, kind of decision making. Yeah, about the same amount there, so about sort of 10 to 15% of the room. Hands up if you're completely random. The majority of the room. Okay, cool. So for those last two groups, there's a lot of potential to improve your decision making. All right, cool. So it all comes down to this thing called decision fatigue, okay? Fascinating area of research that's really kind of sort of come to the mainstream in the last few years. So decision fatigue, basically what happens? Every day when we wake up, we make all these different decisions, from what to eat for breakfast through to how to allocate budget, through to who to recruit into this new role, all sorts of decisions, big and small. Every one of those decisions chips away at our mental resources, and by the end of the day, it's pretty much, depleted. We have a good night's sleep at night, hopefully. We wake up the next morning, it's all restored, right? So what decision fatigue basically is saying is that the more decisions you make over the course of a day, the worse the quality of those decisions becomes, right? If you were to graph it, it looks like that. It's maybe a little bit scary for those that are making the decisions towards the end of the day. There's been some really interesting research done. One of my favourites was done with judges, where they analysed 1,100 different decisions that judges were making in the courtroom every day. Obviously, judges make stacks of important decisions every day. And it was about whether to grant people parole or not, right? What they found is that if you were up in front of the judge asking for parole at 9 in the morning, you had about an 80 to 90% chance of getting granted parole, right? So good odds. That's what you want. In contrast, they looked at people who were up in front of the judge at about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Their chances went down to about 10%. That's not too good. Because basically what decision fatigue leads to us doing is taking the easy way out, right? It's easy to not grant parole, right? Likewise in your business, it's easier to not do the riskier, more differentiating, more compelling innovations. So, even, and I love this, even President Obama knows about decision fatigue and operates based on this. So if you look at any picture or video footage of Obama, he's in one of 2 types of suits. He's in a navy suit or he's in a grey suit. And he does that deliberately so that in the morning, he doesn't have to waste precious mental energy deciding on what to wear. Likewise, he eats the same thing for breakfast every single day so that he can spend his decision resources focusing on the most important things for his country. So the big thing for you guys, well, 2 big things really, is firstly, never, ever, ever make big decisions after lunch. And secondly, if you are ever in trouble with the law, negotiate that 9 a.m. spot in front of the judge. So we'll finally lock this one down in memory, and then I'll say a couple of closing things and I'll hand back to Alistair. So never make important decisions, big decisions after lunch. I reckon, who's a coffee drinker? We've been drinking like the lovely coffees that they bring. Yeah, awesome. So that, for me, that coffee equals morning, even though I gave up caffeine a few weeks ago. We'll pretend that we're like drinking a coffee. That will be the final physical thing that we will do. I know some of you are like, oh, bloody interactive presenters, this is enough. Okay, so we'll go like that. Yep, everyone. Yep, fantastic. Awesome, good, nice Louise, thanks. And on the count of 3, saying what's up there. 1, 2, 3, never make big decisions after lunch. Awesome, fantastic, cool. So hopefully 3 things that you can take back to your business: crush assumptions, put yourself in someone else's shoes, and never make big decisions after lunch. A couple of things, like if you're like, oh, I'm really passionate about creativity and innovation in my business. Obviously, I'm only up here for 15 or so minutes. There's plenty more stuff that that you can learn about driving innovation in your business. So I just want to give you a couple of different options. Firstly, the free option. This little tub here, there's a little table outside on your way out. If you would like to get just a complimentary report which has 5 more techniques on how to drive innovation in your business, I'd love you to get that, because you'll get some other practical things that you can just start to apply immediately. So just whack your business card or your email address in the little tub. They're green and blue, I think, on the table outside with one of my colleagues, and we'll send that to you by the end of the week. So please do that if nothing else. Alistair mentioned this book, The Creativity Formula, with 50 scientifically proven ways to drive creativity. It's a really great read, but I'm biased because I wrote it. So, if you would like some practical stuff, it's normally in bookstores, I think, for $25, but you can grab a copy out there. And finally, you might have noticed a colourful blue kind of brochure, something that we've started to do at Inventium. We normally just exclusively work with the larger end of town, like the Combanks, the Coca-Colas, the Legos and so forth. We've recently started working with small businesses thanks to a wonderful Vic government grant that allows small businesses to gain sort of partially funded access to innovation skills training. So if you are a small business looking to really ramp up your innovation efforts, we do have a program called the Growth Lab where you can get funding from Vic government to attend. So thank you so much. I hope you've learned some practical things that you can take back to your business, and enjoy the rest of your day.